Ahoy, hoy! I'm Professor A, and welcome to the Lyric Professors. Joining me, as ever, are Professor Dogger, who you can see below me and possibly behind me, who is the sine qua non of lyrical analysis, and also on the other side of the world, Professor J. Good afternoon, Professor J.
Hello, I play the guitar.
He's the guitarist. Well, our subject today for the season premiere of the Lyric Professors is Mr. Nick Cave. Tell us what you know about Nick Cave, Professor J.
Well, Nick Cave, he's an Australian. He is listed as being a singer, a songwriter, a poet, a lyricist, an author, a screenwriter, a composer, and an occasional actor. He was born in 1957 and is known for a baritone voice and for fronting the rock band Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. Cave's music is characterized by emotional intensity, a wide variety of influences, and lyrical obsessions with death, religion, love, and violence.
Basically, our kind of guy.
Yeah, sounds great. Where can I meet him?
Yeah.
So what do you know about? Go ahead.
I was just going to say that we're planning to cover 3 of his songs today, but it sounded you had something to say before we get into the songs. So
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's always interesting to talk about where a person comes from to try and understand where their influences are. So, so Nick Cave, not Nicolas Cage, that's another guy. Nick Cave was he grew up in rural Victoria in Australia. He studied art in Melbourne, and then he started a sort of post-punk band, which was called the Birthday Party in the late 1970s.
I'd just say before that, I believe he had a band called Nick Cave and the Cavemen.
He likes using his own name, right?
Yeah, I think that's something which was very popular back in the day. It was always, Cliff Richard and the Shadows and that kind of thing. But it seems to have died out. But he is in many ways a throwback, I think.
He sure is. Okay, so he relocated to London in 1980, and he was what's the correct word? He was disillusioned by life and evolved towards a darker and more challenging sound that helped inspire gothic rock and acquired a reputation as the most violent live band in the world.
Really? Did not know that.
He became well known for his confrontational performances, his crazy black hair, and his pale, emaciated look. I mean, what do you think about his look?
I think he looks like a 1950s Undertaker.
I mean, considering that, he has a lot of success love-wise.
Well, yeah. Also a great degree of tragedy, I believe, but that's not something to go into just yet. We'll probably discuss that in episode 2, I should think.
Probably.
Okay, but yes, having seen several YouTube videos of interviews with him, etc., he is certainly a very charming man. So his success with the fairer sex is hardly surprising, I would say.
Okay. So, this the group that he had in London in the 1980s broke up, and then he moved to Berlin in 1982, and it was there that he formed Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. Later described as one of rock's most redoubtable, enduring bands. Much of their early material is set in the mythic American Deep South, drawing on spirituals and Delta blues, while Cave's preoccupation with Old Testament, good versus evil, culminated in what has been called his signature song, The Mercy Seat, in 1988. And
I'm glad we picked that one.
Yeah, and in his debut novel, And the Ass Saw the Angel, in 1989. Yeah, so that's what I know about Nick Cave. I have to be honest here, I've never really listened to his music. How about you?
Yeah, I've listened to everything he's done, I think. I went through a period when I thought he was great. and then I just forgot about him for a long time, and then caught up later. And I have to say, his sound has changed so much over the years, which will probably be shown in the songs we cover over this and the next episode. It starts out full of sturm and drang and anger and... I'm sorry, did I use a foreign term? I've tried not to do that. And things are very much more electric. What are you doing, Professor Dogger? Seriously, come on.
She
Have a word with
agrees.
yourself. Yeah. Yes, and things have become a lot more ambient and electronic, whereas they were more guitar and piano based originally. And I think his themes have turned from sort of angry and sinister to grief, mostly, for understandable reasons, which we will again probably go into on episode 2. I think his earlier tracks were so inventive at the time. Thank you. That's a good comment. Thank you. And especially, as you say, the Mercy Seat, which I think is one of the most important songs ever written, personally. Although it's not exactly accessible, put it that way.
No, it is not.
Today we're going to be covering 3 songs, which are Tupelo, Mercy Seat, and probably his most famous number, Red Right Hand. Did you have something first to say before we start?
Yeah, should we start with being Tupelo?
Tupelo, yes. Okay,
so this is from 1985. It is the second single from their second album, The Firstborn is Dead. Let's dive directly into some lyrics. Would you mind if I didn't repeat all the lyrics, because he says a lot of these a number of times, right?
He does, yeah. I think for the Mercy Seat, some of the repetition is important because there are slight differences, but this one is pretty much just repetition. So do feel free to give us the edited highlights.
Okay, here we go. Edited highlights. Looker yonder, a big black cloud come. Oh, comes to Tupelo, come to Tupelo. Yonder on the horizon, stopped at the mighty river, and sucked the damn thing dry. Tupelo. Is that a good place to stop?
Yeah, that's fine. Tupelo, of course, is in Mississippi, in America. I originally thought it was in Kansas, but I was getting confused with Topeka, I think. I don't know much about American geography, to be fair. And it was written in 1984. That was released in 1985, as you said, by Cave, with the drummer Barry Adamson and the bassist, Mick Harvey, band. And it's based on a song by John Lee Hooker, the blues legend with the same name. So what we have in this first bit of verses is also another reference to another song by another blues legend, Leadbelly, perhaps best known these days for having written "Where Did You Sleep Last Night," which was covered by Nirvana on their Unplugged album. And that song was called "Looky Looky Yonder," I think. Or it could have been called Tupelo, because my notes are very could go either way. Sorry about that.
Well, yes. so Tupelo, so it's a city and it's the county seat of Lee County in Mississippi. It's a population of 38,300, and it's the 6th largest city in Mississippi. Mississippi has a population of 2.6 million people in total, so it's fairly small. So Tupelo, of course, is where Elvis Presley was born. So he's really making a lot of reference to Elvis here. And 1936, there was a natural disaster in Tupelo. There was a tornado, and
there was at least 12 tornadoes during the outbreak.
Well, there was let's say a storm that leveled 48 city blocks and over 200 homes killing 216 people and injuring more than 700.
Right, I've actually got 454 people killed, but who knows? They're both on the internet, so they must both be true.
What does Professor Dogger say? He's our final arbiter.
It says 2,405.
Thank you, my lady.
So that's how many people were killed.
Yeah. And so it struck at night, so that's why it made it worse, because most people were asleep. And amongst the survivors was a young Elvis Presley.
Indeed.
There we go. The storm was rated F5 on the Fujita scale.
That's nice to know, isn't it? Yes.
And it's one of the deadliest. Go ahead.
I was going to say it's the only continuous tornado outbreak in the United States to produce more than one tornado with a triple-digit death toll. So it's a real bad boy, this tornado.
That's it's well worthy of writing songs about.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, so so what we have, we look yonder, big black cloud is coming. It's coming to Tupelo. Yonder, it stopped at the mighty river and it sucked that damn thing dry. What's all that about?
And obviously, this hasn't happened because tornadoes don't literally suck all the water out of the river. Generally, I'd have thought. I suppose it could be possible if it centres on it and it's sucking up, but it's definitely showing the amount of water which is involved and about to come down from this big black cloud. It's basically sort of a harbinger of doom, this first verse.
Yep. Okay, well let's dive into some more. Oh, Tupelo, in a valley hides a town called Tupelo. Well, distant thunder rumble. Rumble, hungry like the beast. The beast it cometh down. Whoa. Tupelo bound. Tupelo. Yeah, oh Tupelo, the beast it cometh, Tupelo bound. Why the hen won't lay no egg? Can't get that cock to crow. The nag is spooked and crazy. Oh God help Tupelo. Let's pause there.
Indeed. As you mentioned in your character description, Mr. Cave likes to use a lot of Old Testament imagery. In this case, though, he's using New Testament imagery. In the book of Revelation, the verse in question saying, "And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy." That is the beast, as in referred to as the number of the beast and that kind of thing. So he's basically saying it's a bit satanic, this.
So why is he saying all this? I mean, he was a great admirer of Elvis Presley, one of the few people that he did admire. So why do you think he's using this imagery? Why is he choosing this instance to describe one of his greatest heroes?
Obviously, he says it's about the night of his birth, but also the night where his twin brother died. But I don't think he's saying that Elvis is the beast. He's saying that the storm is.
Yeah. I'm just wondering why he chose that.
I think, as we say, it's based on the John Lee Hooker song.
Yeah.
And then he's bringing his own peculiar lyrical talents to the party to describe it. Do you have anything to say about why the hen will lay no egg and can't get that to grow?
I was about to ask the same question, Professor A.
Oh, right.
Go for it.
A lot of people on the web that I've seen when researching this say that it's a quote from Margaret Thatcher. And she did indeed say something similar, but it's actually an old saying. It's been heard at least as far back as 1659, according to the Wordsworth Dictionary of Proverbs. But what Thatcher did say, cocks may crow, but it's the hen that lays the egg. So she was basically saying men are talkers, women are doers, because she had her own particular brand of feminism to go with her own particular brand of fascism. But that's just me speaking there.
So what does that can't get that cock to crow? Why the hen won't lay no egg, can't get that cock to crow? Why is that mentioned here, do we think?
That's a good question. I think it's not talking about the same thing as Thatcher, certainly, but I think it's saying that this coming storm is disrupting natural forms of life in the way that no hen will be laying an egg tonight because they're all affected by the storm. Cocks won't be crowing. And the nag, obviously, a nag being a horse, in case anyone's listening in a country where you don't share our vernacular. Yeah, it's a bit scared and hardly surprising when 12 tornadoes of death are coming.
Okay, let's go for some more lyrics. Oh, God help Tupelo. You can say these streets are rivers. You can call these rivers streets. You can tell yourself you're dreaming, buddy, but no sleep runs this deep. No sleep runs this deep. Women at their windows, rain crashing on the pane, writing in the frost, Tupelo's shame. Oh, God help Tupelo.
Yeah, obviously the streets are becoming rivers because there's so much water flowing into them. The particular small town I live in England, when I moved in 20 years ago, I guess now, to this town, at that time, this happened here. My town is at the bottom of a valley.
Tornado?
And people, no, not a tornado, but every time that we had a thunderstorm of any kind of strength, people would canoe down the high street for days.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, it was. They've largely sorted out the drainage now, thankfully, but
Right.
it was definitely common to see people canoeing down the streets after thunderstorms here.
Wow.
I guess that's that for the Tupelo. The streets have become rivers because there's so much water pouring down them. You can tell yourself you're dreaming, buddy. Well, is that really the normal reaction to seeing this amount of water falling out of the sky? Oh, I must be dreaming. No, I don't think it really is, probably. But
Yeah.
of course,
No sleep runs this deep, right?
Yeah, you can't know. But this is before the internet, obviously, so you're not necessarily going to have known the severity of the storm that was coming in advance. When was it again?
36.
It was 36, yeah, so it predates television as well. So
Yeah.
only newspapers would have been there and radio, I suppose, to some extent.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't necessarily know how bad it was going to be.
And then a small town, you wouldn't have had many people with radios, I'd imagine.
No, I shouldn't have thought so. And women at their windows, rain crashing on the pane. I know I'm certainly attracted to bad weather when it occurs.
Yeah.
Either go out in it or look out the window, certainly. Love a good storm.
Okay, so let's.
I think we need to talk
Oh.
about the Tupelo's shame. So,
Okay.
Why is this their shame?
I don't know.
No, I don't either. But a lot of people on the internet say, so it must be true, that it's a reference to Sodom and Gomorrah. Don't know why, but apparently Tupelo's shame is referring to Sodom and Gomorrah, the twin towns in the Old Testament that were destroyed by God for licentious behaviour or something.
Right.
But whether he's saying Tupelo was proper naughty like or something, I don't know. I mean, there's nothing else in the song which suggests that Tupelo deserved this kind of event happening as biblical wrath or whatever. So I don't really know. But
yeah, I mean that comes into the next lines, right? So we have, "Oh, go to sleep, little children. The Sandman's on his way." But the little children know. They listen to the beating of their blood. Sandman's mud, the Sandman's mud, and black rain come down. The black rain come down. Water, water everywhere, where no bird can fly, no fish can swim, until the king is born in Tupelo. So the Sandman obviously is a reference to the mythical beast that puts a little grain of sand in your eye when you go to sleep. popularized by Metallica, some might say.
I suppose it's quite well known before then, but yeah, it's a creature from Scandinavian and German folklore originally. And in Der Sandman, with two N's, by E.T.A. Hoffman, a story, the result of the sand being sprinkled into the children's eye sockets is that their eyes fall out of their sockets, and the Sandman uses them to feed his children. So it wasn't always just used as a. I mean, there was a famous pop song in the 60s, "Oh, Mr. Sandman."
Wildest. Oh, Mr.
Was it?
Sandman. Yes.
Yes.
Sing
So
me
it's
a
not
dream.
necessarily as jolly as that. I think in its original form, it was very much a bad thing if the Sandman came and put your children to sleep.
Yeah, I mean,
veterinary way.
that was a love song, Mr. Sandman.
Yes, indeed.
So why do you think it says Sandman's mud? Is it just because it rhymes with
I
blood?
don't know that it does. What it sounds to me, it says it's either mud or murder.
Oh, okay.
And most of the lyric sites seem to say mud -ah. But I mean, it could be either. I mean, obviously, Sandman's mud, sand mixing with rain and the dirt that's flowing around could create some mud, I suppose. I'm not a scientist, unlike you, so can you create mud by a tornado and a bit of sand?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, sure.
Why not?
Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, that could be. It could be meant as mud from all the mess that's floating around, or it could, as I say, be a dual meaning and be mud and be talking about the way the original Sandman stole your eyes and mudded you. Yes. Listen to the beating of their blood. I mean, I guess when you're really stressed, sometimes you can hear your own heartbeat in your ears.
Yeah.
Or so it's probably that bit. The black rain come down. Why is it black?
Bringing doom.
Yes. And of course, we have the water everywhere. Maxim.
And not a drop to drink.
Yes, you know where it goes from.
It's your fellow with the whale, right?
No, it's your fellow with the albatross. It's the Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner by Samuel Taylor Coleridge.
I thought that was by Bruce Dickinson.
Yeah, you're probably right, to be fair. And the original lines from the Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner are water everywhere, and all the boards did shrink. Water everywhere, not any drop to drink. That's different because it's referring to salt water, which you can't drink. You probably could drink this rain, although it would be sort of H2CO3, he says, after saying he's not a scientist. But it's probably not
H2CO3?
Weak carbonic acid. Acid rain.
Acid rain. Acid rain. Yeah. Okay.
All right. And also we've got where no bird can fly, no fish can swim.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Well, I presume it's just that the rain is so heavy and the tornado is so tornado-y that birds can't fly. And why the fish can't swim when there's so much water, I don't know. That bit I don't get. And I also would like to point out that the Manx shearwater can fly underwater. That's a bird. So there you go.
Manx shearwater.
Indeed. Who knows?
Do that.
Flaps its wings a bit, I think.
Yeah, probably. Alrighty. Could you do the next couple of lines, please?
Have we finished these lines?
No. Oh, I think so.
No, here we are. We haven't finished this last verse because here we get the first reference to Elvis until the king is born. The king being Elvis, of course. Actually, we've kind of misled people, haven't we? Because this wasn't actually, the tornado didn't happen on the night he was born, did it?
No, it didn't. I was going to say that, and it was nothing to do with the death of his twin. I don't think either.
No. Oh, Well, I'm not sure, but apparently he was born in Tupelo in 1935, so he would have been 1 year old at the time of the tornado-y action. Do you want me to read the next section?
Yes, please. Yeah.
In a clapboard shack with a roof of tin, where the rain crashed down and leaked within, a young mother frozen on a concrete floor, in a bottle and a box and a cradle of straw. Tupelo, oh Tupelo, in a bottle and a box and a cradle of straw. Saturday gives what Sunday steals, and a child is born on his brother's heels. Sunday morning, the firstborn dead, in a shoebox tied with a ribbon of red. Oh, Tupelo! In a shoebox buried with a ribbon of red. Leave it there or finish it? Let's finish it. Oh, Mama, rock you, little one, slow. Mama, rock your baby. Mama, rock your little one, slow. God help Tupelo. God help Tupelo. Mama, rock your little one slow. The little one will walk on Tupelo. Black rain come down. Black rain come down.
Yeah, I mean it's a heck of some words there. There's a lot going on. So if I remember correctly, I think Elvis's twin died at birth or very soon after birth. Is that right?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah.
I think he died at a stillbirth. Yeah, he was named. His name was Jesse Garan Bursley, and he was a stillborn.
And he's, so this is the whole thing about the young mother, bottle in a box, a cradle of straw, because it was a very poor area, I think, Tupelo. I think it's kind of post-industrial now, but at the time it was very, very poor. And this is the whole thing about a child is born on his brother's heels.
Yeah, that's also another biblical reference.
Yeah.
In Genesis chapter 25. That's the one after Phil Collins took over the vocals. Jacob is born asking his brother Esau's heel. And that'll be what it's referring to. The child is born on his brother's heels. And of course, it just means straight after, isn't it? What do we think of the bottle and box and cradle of straw? I mean, to me, it's implying a nativity scene from the Bible again.
Yes, exactly.
Right. Referring to Elvis as Jesus Christ, basically. Although the cradle is the same, cradle, manger. Bottle and a box sounds like he's missing a gift to me. It's a nativity scene. There were 3 gifts brought by the Magi, the infant child.
Old
Jesus.
Frankenstein and Grur, was it?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. Well, it could have been mold. I'm not sure. Yeah. So, what do you think about Saturday gives what Sunday steals? I think that's a nice line.
I have no idea. What does that mean?
I think it's just one day something great happens to you. She has her first child, and then the next day, something bad happens, and her second child is stolen from her.
Yeah.
And we got Sunday morning, the firstborn dead. In the versions I've seen online, it's usually spelled Mour.
I was going to ask that. Yeah. So my version, it says Sunday morning, but it's clearly a play on words, isn't it?
Yes. And the shoebox tied with a ribbon of red. That is a reference to Nick Cave's novel, which you mentioned, of when the ass.
But he hasn't written it yet.
And the ass saw the angel, hasn't he? Oh, right. Well, it's used. But it's used in that anyway.
I mean, he could have. Let's say it was not published yet.
Right. Yeah. In that, the protagonist is born with a twin who dies shortly after his birth, who is placed in a shoebox. Right. So we have the line, Pa was walking to the door. Over his left shoulder was a long-handled spade. It was then that I noticed the grizzled knob, the tufted cleft, his missing ear. In his hands he held a shoebox bound in string. On its lid was written number 1. Gosh. That's something. That's really something.
That's something else, right?
Yeah.
So let's go back to John Lee Hooker. So I mean, he has this classic song, and it's based on the kind of the talking blues, sort of the which was kind of one of Hooker's things about telling stories with the music rather than something about that. It's interesting that because Nick Cave often talks about the end of life of Elvis Presley. I think this is the only song that talks about the beginning of his life. Not that it's very happy.
No, it isn't. Should we talk about the music? Just how would you, being the more consummate musician between us, how would you describe the music?
I like it. It's to me it sounds, it's clearly very influenced by John Lee Hooker. It sounds very sort of Mississippi blues, Delta blues, kind of the droning style.
Yeah, and it's got some gospel influence in the hooked below as a mast, it's almost a choir.
Have you listened to the John Lee Hooker version?
I am a consummate professional who does his research thoroughly, but no, I haven't. Really should.
I mean, it's what you'd expect. Very very basic. I mean, there are several versions, but the original is very basic droning. I guess you could call it Delta blues. But musically, I really like it, coming from someone whose background is in blues. I think musically it's really interesting. What do you think of it?
Yes, I think it's great. Yeah, I think it's not particularly accessible. It's not as inaccessible as the next song. That's and to be honest, think yourself lucky I didn't pick the Carney. Go and listen to that one if you want something inaccessible. Yeah, I think it's a very striking song. Everything is there with an intended effect, I would say, instrumentally. It's a lot of it is noise rather than necessarily melody. Well, that's by design. That's perfectly reasonable. I think it's a great song.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting you say noise. As we mentioned previously, Nick Cave has had a lot of success with the ladies, and
that's because of the noise he makes, is it?
But no, it's just that he seems to, I don't know him very well, but he's, and I've not listened to a lot of his music, but he's really, his tendrils are everywhere. So I remember him having, he collaborated a lot with Kylie Minogue, and then recently I was reading something, and I stumbled across no, that was it. I heard a quote, and the quote was, "The only thing worse than a guitar is a guitarist," which was nice quote from a punk artist who collaborated on one of 1985's greatest tracks. I'm just good, which is Death Valley 69.
This chap, yes.
Yeah. So it's Death Valley 69, which is voted by one of the top 10 songs of this year, 1985, that we're talking about, by the NME. It's in Kerrang have voted it one of the 50 most evil songs ever. And the actress, so this song, even though I'd never heard of it, but it's in the noise rock genre, so it's kind of experimental.
It's by Sonic Youth with Lydia Lunch to help you out a bit there.
Thank you very much. And the actress in the video, which is renowned, is a lady by the name of Lung Leg. It's not her birth name. She starred in the video and she dated Nick Cave. So he has connections throughout the world. Just have to dig. Okay. Should we go to the next song?
Let's do that.
Okay. So the next one you've chosen is Red Right Hand. This is a 1994 song.
No. Let's do them in chronological order, shall we?
Have I jumped one? I have jumped one. Mercy seats, right? So this is the first single from the 5th album, Tender Prey, from 1988. The editor of Rolling Stone listed it as one of the 1001 greatest songs ever. Okay, so let's dive into some lyrics and then we'll discuss it a little bit later. They came and took me from my home and put me in dead row, of which I am nearly wholly innocent of, you know. And I'll say it again, I'm not afraid to die. I began to warm and chill to objects and their fields, a ragged cup, a twisted mop, the face of Jesus in my soup, those sinister dinner deals. I don't know where to stop. Difficult to stop. Yeah. The meal trolley's wicked wheels, a hooked bone rising from my food, all things either good or ungood, and the mercy seat is waiting.
Stopping. Okay. What do we have to say about this then?
Well, they took him from his home and put me in dead row. I think it's death row, right?
Yes, that makes more sense. Yes.
And I love this next line. I think this is great. Of which I am nearly wholly innocent of. I really like that. Yeah. That's nicely written.
Yeah, at this point, I should say a lot of people know this song, and especially in America, probably think it's by Johnny Cash, who covered it. It was a very successful cover. It's a very good cover. But it's worth saying that in the Johnny Cash version, the man declares himself totally innocent as opposed to nearly wholly innocent. And Nick Cave had a comment on this, talking to the magazine Mojo. He says, "Pure Johnny Cash. He's been effed over by the system. He's an innocent man in jail. He's going to die." And he says, "I always thought it was clear that the guy did it. What's in question is the concept of guilt and innocence. In the sense that he may have done it, but it doesn't mean he's a guilty person in a broader sense. My version is more conflicted, which is pure Nick Cave, I suppose."
Okay, so maybe we need to just backtrack a second and just define what a mercy seat is.
Yes. Do you know what it originally was?
I do, but I'll let you go ahead.
Oh, okay. I suppose so. It was originally the lid of the Ark of the Covenant,
otherwise known as the caporet.
Yeah, really? Oh, there you go. The Ark of the Covenant being, in biblical terms, the container that Moses' 10 Commandment tablets were stored in. And as everyone knows from Raiders of the Lost Ark, if you open it, your face melts.
But then what? So that's one definition. What's the sort of more popularized definition and the intention here, or part of the intention here?
Well, it says in this song, it refers to two more things, really. It refers to the electric chair where the narrator will be executed for his crime, which he is nearly wholly innocent of, and also the throne of God, where he will then be judged. That's that. Did you have another meaning in mind?
No. I mean, it starts off by talking about the electric chair, right? They've been put on death row for a crime which he didn't wholly do. No. He's nearly wholly innocent.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Okay. So where do we get to?
It's like being slightly pregnant, isn't it? Yes. Yes. Now we need to look at the next few words, which the eye began to warm and chill to objects in their fields, a ragged cup, a twisting up the face of Jesus in my soup. Do you have a theory on what this is referring to?
No.
Well, it's believed. I believe it is referring to the medical complaint, I guess it will be described as apophenia, which is the tendency to perceive meaningful connections between unrelated things.
Oh.
It's coined by psychiatrist Klaus Conrad in his 1958 publication about the beginning stages of schizophrenia.
Okay.
He defined it as unmotivated seeing of connections accompanied by a specific feeling of abnormal meaningfulness. It's I've come to describe the human propensity to seek patterns in random information. It often afflicts gamblers.
Yeah, that's interesting, because the one person that I did meet who was either schizophrenic or pre-schizophrenic, it's a long story, but and this is back in the late 1980s. He thought that the registration plates on somebody's motorbike indicated the Lockerbie plane disaster, and he was also let's say pre-schizophrenic at that moment in time. Well, that's really interesting. So this person is seeing these signs in their things: a ragged cup, a twisted mop, the face of Jesus in my soup, which is interesting, because today in one of the lower level publications I saw, somebody found the image of Princess Diana in a melon.
No,
Why not? The mercy seats waiting for that person. What's this? A hooked bone rising from my food.
I think this is referring to the prisoner's last meal, specifically in American prisons, which this would be because it's a death row. The prisoner is, I think, still in most states allowed to choose whatever they want for their final meal. What would you choose, Professor Dogger? Steak? Really? Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. No. They're allowed to choose the final meal they receive before they are executed. So I guess that's what it's about.
Why a
also, we
hooked
need
bone?
Well, I guess he chose something which had a big bone in it, like ribs or T-bone steak or something.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Okay,
I
so
think we also need to point out that he's claiming his innocence, but hinting at his guilt, nearly wholly innocent.
Exactly.
And it also brings the verse we've gone over, brings out the first repetition of "I'm not afraid to die," which might change over time.
Let us find out. So we finished at "and the mercy seat is waiting," and I think my head is burning, and in a way I'm yearning to be done with all this measuring of proof. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. And anyway, I told the truth, and I'm not afraid to die.
Stop. Need to break it down. So the mercy seat's waiting. We've described that this is the electric chair in this case, which is not a particularly reliable way of executing someone. I don't have figures to hand. I know it often takes many attempts and it takes a long time, and it's meant to be absolutely terrifying for not just the person who's being killed, but people watching it in the gallery and that kind of thing. It's really not a nice way to go.
Right.
I think my head is burning. There'd be a dual meaning there. People's skin can literally melt while being electrified.
Okay.
And they shave the prisoner's head and put electrodes on their head.
Right.
It's partially that, and also his head is probably burning from going over his repetitions of whether he's afraid to die or not and how guilty he is.
Indeed.
He's yearning to be done with all his measuring of proof. Well, to a legal standard, the measuring of proof has obviously finished by now. He's being executed.
And that phrase is repeated throughout this song, isn't it? This.
Yes. Yes.
Do you know how many times it's repeated, Professor A?
I think it's about 8,003.
Yeah, I think it's 15.
Oh. Yeah. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth.
Well, that's an old law text from I can't remember where it's from, but if you cause damage to someone, your penalty would be to receive equal damage, right?
Yeah, kind of. It's mentioned in the Old Testament, the Bible. But it
Mm,
wasn't invented at that time. It's older.
right.
It comes from ancient Babylon,
Mm,
which is now Iraq, pretty much. The Code of Hammurabi. Hammurabi was the ruler, and what he was actually trying to do was limit the violent reprisals. If someone took your eye previously, then you'd be killed. He was trying to limit it and say, if they took your eye, then you can take their eye. It's not. So it actually was meant to be something sort of merciful, not an endless cycle of retribution. But
right. Babylonians doing it the good way.
Babylonians, yes, quite a bunch of hotties they were.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and then we get, of course, a repetition. Anyway, I told the truth, and I'm not afraid to die. Lisa, let's carry on.
Okay. Interpret signs and catalogue. A blackened tooth, a scarlet fog. The walls are bad, black, bottom kind. They are sick breath at my hind. They are sick breath gathering at my hind. I hear stories from the chamber how Christ was born into a manger, and like some ragged stranger died upon the cross. And might I say, it seems so fitting in its way, he was a carpenter by trade, or at least that's what I'm told.
Okay, so interpret signs and catalogue. I think this is his apophenia talking
Yeah.
again. He's seeing all these signs in his soup and in the walls, and he's cataloguing them in his head. He's now adding a blackened tooth. Well, I expect dental care isn't great on death row. The scarlet fog. Who knows? Could just be the red mist that descended upon him when he committed his crime, which he is nearly wholly innocent of. Or, who knows, the walls are bad. Well, they're obviously not that bad because they're keeping him in. I don't know what he means exactly by that. They're bad because he can't get out of them, maybe. Black bottom kind. No idea. Use my face. It does that sometimes. They are the sick breath at my hind. My hind, obviously meaning behind, rear. So it's like something is following him, chasing him, wearing him down. But obviously, he's staying still because he's incarcerated. But time, in this case, is chasing him because his execution awaits. It's just. I hear stories from the chamber. What do you think of that? Which chamber?
The chamber where the executions are done.
So I would suggest perhaps where he is, he can hear other executions, and often at an execution, a prisoner will be asked if they have any last words, and they will be asked if they want to receive any religious intervention from a priest, rabbi, imam, whatever. So he could well have heard a priest talking to another condemned criminal from the chamber about Christ being born into a manger. I would suggest. Although it sounds like he was getting the entire 33-year documentary about Christ, if it goes from his birth to his dying. Excuse me, sir. Professor Dogger, quiet. It's a lovely comment. We're talking. Yes, and then he says that it's fitting in its way because Jesus was a carpenter and he died upon a cross that would have been made by a carpenter. So, that line.
Well, his father was a carpenter, not him.
I believe the Bible says that he was instructed in. I don't know whether he worked at it.
Okay. Right, next lines. Like my good tattooed evil cross its brother's
Well,
fists.
it's my good hand who's tattooed even.
I tried to say that,
What?
but that filthy five, they did nothing to challenge or resist. In heaven his throne is made of gold. The ark of his testament is stowed, a throne from which I'm told all history does unfold. Down here it's made of wood and wire, and my body is on fire. God is never far away. Into the mercy
Okay.
seat I. Oh, okay.
Should we stop there?
Yep.
Too carried away, do we? Make a wait for it. The tattoo.
Mhm.
Do you know where the famous reference of having good and evil tattooed on your fingers comes
No, I
from?
do not.
It might not be the original place, but the 1953 novel and 1955 film called The Night of the Hunter. There's a famous villain called Reverend Harry Powell who
Mhm.
has good and evil tattooed on his fingers.
Mm.
He's a serial killer disguised as a preacher. Except, yes, so he doesn't have good and evil tattooed. He has love and hate tattooed into his hands. He uses scripture to justify his killings. It's meant to be an absolutely brilliant film, but I've never watched it.
Mm.
So, of course, its brother's fist is the other hand. So
Yeah.
it's got evil on one hand and good on the other. That
Yeah.
filthy five.
The good hand did nothing to help, right? Just the bad hand.
And then he stops talking about it. So, presumably, there he's talking about his crime, the one of which he's nearly wholly innocent.
Mhm.
It's not entirely his fault because his good hand didn't stop him.
Exactly. What can he do?
In heaven, his throne is made of gold. The ark of his testament is stowed.
Mhm.
Again, this is conflating the original meaning of mercy seat as the lid of the ark of the covenant and
Mhm.
it meaning the throne that God sits on.
Mhm. But down here it's made of wood and wire. My body is on fire, and God is never far away. Right?
Yes, so he down here, obviously, the mercy seat is the electric chair, and his body is on fire. This is before he's being executed. He's just so, yes, stressed.
Mhm.
God is never far away. He feels God is close because he feels he's going to meet him soon, or because of the overhearing other homilies from prisoners being executed.
Mhm.
So I think that's a
Yeah.
fairly straightforward verse.
Okay. All right. Cracking on. Into the mercy seat I climb. My head is shaved, my head is wired like a moth that tries to enter the bright eye. So I go shuffling out of life just to hide in death a while. And anyway, I never lied. My kill hand is called evil. Wears a wedding band that's good. Is a long suffering shackle collaring all that devil blood. And the mercy seat is burning. And I think my head is flowing. Yeah, let's pause there. Huh?
Right, I've got a couple of queries with those lyrics, but yes, okay. Into the mercy seat I climb, my head is shaved, my head is wired. This is when he's actually being electrocuted. Excuse me. Calm down. Calm down, dear. So, yes, his head's been shaved, as I mentioned before. He's got the electrodes put on his head. And like the moth that tries to enter the right eye, well, obviously moths are drawn to flames. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So he goes shuffling out of life just to hide in death a while.
I like that.
So this was, yeah. I mean, it's shuffling off the mortal coil or whatever from the old Monty Python Nordic Blue Parrot or whatever it was sketch.
Yes.
Yeah, but just to hide in death a while suggests that does he think of reincarnation? It sounds like he's thinking of coming back, or that's what he believes
Absolutely.
at this point.
Yeah.
And anyway, I never lied. I think this is important. At this point, which lie is he referring to?
That he didn't do it.
One possibility. He could
Or
still be, sticking to his guns, saying, "I never lied. I told you I was nearly wholly innocent, so I am still nearly wholly innocent." I think also it could be the lie could be his assertion that he's not afraid to die. I think that might have just changed when he's put in the chair.
right, yes. Yes.
Then my kill hand is called Evil. Wears a wedding band that's good. He's saying that his hand, which has evil written on it, was his wedding band hand, so his left hand. So he could have, well, who knows? He could have killed his wife with his wedding band hand. Who knows? And 'tis a long-suffering shackle collaring all that rebel blood. Do we have anything to say about this?
Yes, I got it as devil blood.
Ah, right. Well, I thought it was rebel. Who knows? If it is rebel, it could be referring to the American Civil War, Confederacy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. If it's devil, he could just be saying that if he's evil, his blood's
So
demonic.
I mean, he's saying here that his wedding ring is shackling him and has made all his blood evil, captured all that blood evil. So it's his fault that he got married that's caused him to do this.
Well, but yeah. So it does seem to be suggesting that it's his wife he's being accused of killing.
Yeah. Yes. Okay.
And then you've got the mercy seat is burning. And I think my head is I've got glowing here, but you said something else.
Okay. I said flowing.
I think glowing's more likely because it's being lit up by the electricity.
I think so. That's more.
Yeah.
It's more picturesque, right?
Yes.
Okay. And in a way, I'm hoping to be done with all this weighing up of truth. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Nothing left to lose. Not afraid to die. Mercy suit is glowing. I think my head is melting. So there's a lot of repetition. Where do we get something that's different? I saw no proof and nor no motive why.
Well, he originally said he wanted to be done with all the measuring of proof back in the song. Now he's talking about the weighing up of truth. I mean, that's pretty much the same thing, I would suggest, except it's ruling out physical evidence. It's just stop it. It's just stories, tales, whether he's telling the truth or not. And then it goes on. That changes to, as you say, he wants to be done with all this twisting of the truth. Is the next part of that continuing theme. Whether he's saying the people who accused him twisted the truth and he was convicted on lies, or whether he's talking about his own twisting of the truth, which he's beginning to accept. And then it goes on. We have, as you say, a lot of repetition, but it's not all repetition. And we've got an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth again. Anyway, I saw no proof and not a motive why.
Yeah.
It's a bit strange to talk about the crime you've been convicted of that way. If we were right about his wedding ring, then we know he does see a motive why. If he saw no proof, perhaps he thinks he cleaned up the crime scene sufficiently.
Maybe.
Who knows?
Maybe that's it.
The mercy seat is melting, and I think my blood is boiling. That'll happen when you get however many thousand volts through you, I should think. Yes, and in a way, I'm spoiling all the fun by all of this consequence and truth. Is he saying that he's spoiling the fun of the executioners and the jailers because he's continually pointing out that he's innocent?
Yeah.
I would suggest. Then we go eye for an eye, tooth for tooth, nothing left to lose, and I'm not afraid to die again. I think my head is burning. Back to measuring of proof. Anyway, there was no proof and not a motive why. Then we get a lot of repetition. Ooh, a lot of repetition. Oh, and then his head starts smoking as well as glowing.
A
He's
life
hoping
for
to
a
be done.
life.
Yeah, he's hoping to be done with all his looks of disbelief as well. A life for a life, you're right, and a truth for a truth.
Truth for a truth.
I'm not afraid to die. Next page. That's a repeat. That's a repeat. That's a repeat. That's a repeat. Then we get to, he changes anyway I told the truth and I'm not afraid to die to anyway I told the truth but I'm not afraid to lie,
Oh,
which is a bit strange. So he's saying he didn't lie, he's not afraid to, so it wouldn't be a big deal if he had, perhaps.
yeah.
That happens again.
And he doesn't ever say that he's afraid to die, does he? He just says finally.
Well, he might. He might. It depends when,
Ah.
as I said, which lie you think he's referring to. Because now we're at the last verse completely. And the mercy seat is waiting, and I think my head is burning. And in a way, I'm yearning to be done with all this measuring of proof, of an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. And anyway, I told the truth, and I'm afraid I told a lie.
Okay.
So that sounds to me like he's saying, anyway, I told the truth. I was telling the truth. I'm innocent of this crime, but I'm afraid I also told a lie. That I am afraid to die.
Mm-hmm.
That would be my take.
So, yeah, I mean, it's ticking all the cave boxes, right? It's a bit dark. It's got some death. It's got a lot of biblical references. A lot of repetition. I'm not up on the scripture, but apparently it references Leviticus 16 and Leviticus 24. And people suggest that it's an autobiographical song.
I don't see how he certainly hasn't been executed. So
Yeah.
I thought it was in his book again. Yes, or the angel. In fact, I got a quote from Nick Cave about how he wrote the song.
Yeah.
This is from his 2020 book, Stranger Than Kindness, which I haven't read, I'm ashamed to add. Songs are ingenious devices that have their own demands. They find their way, whether you like it or not. In the early 80s, I was fully engaged in the writing of my novel, And the Ass Saw the Angel, which came out in 1989. I sat in a small room in Berlin, typing away day and night, sleeping little. When I reached an impasse with the novel, I would scroll the odd lyric line on a scrap of paper beside me, ostensibly a song about a man going to the electric chair. The song was at best a distraction, a doodle, a song I never looked fully in the eye or thought much about. But songs had their own journeys and in time assert their sovereignty. The Mercy Seat was such a song. Even when I was singing it, I had no idea that the song was important, or that I would play it at every gig for the next 35 years, or that my hero Johnny Cash would one day record it. It was, as far as I was concerned, an afterthought. I often find that when it comes to songwriting, I am the last to know. The songs hold within them a far greater understanding of their potential than I do. So,
I need to take a quick pause there for just a second.
Okay. Well, I meant to do now. I have been abandoned. Oh. I'll just say The Mercy Seat was written by Nick Cave, lyrics and music, and Mick Harvey, the bass player from Bad Seeds. 1988 album Tender Prey. It's also been covered by Camille O'Sullivan and Unter Null. The next song we're going to do is Red Right Hand when Professor J returns. We are on pause now. So I found out how to pause it after you disappeared. That's helpful, isn't it?
Hey.
We are back.
So
did
yeah,
you have anything else to say about Mercy Seat?
Just one thing that that Cave said, that he said at one point that well, I'll read the quote. Before I was able to write things like "I'm not afraid to die," and kids come up to me and say, "Hey, that line means so much to me," And I have to sort of say, I don't feel that way anymore. I don't feel as cocky about death as I used to. I wake up in mad panics about death approaching. So, yeah.
Interesting. And what do we think about it musically? Again, I think as we've mentioned, this is even less accessible than Tupelo.
Long?
It's long, yes.
How long is it?
6.5 minutes, I think. It's not
Oh.
very long.
I had my mind that it was longer.
No, I don't think so.
Just felt longer.
It's very dense.
Yeah.
All of the instruments, all of the time. It has strings, guitars, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Everything sort of entwined into a. I kind of want to say sludge, but that would sound insulting, and it's not meant to be at all. It's just a dense mass of sound with any instrument contributing.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's interesting. Yeah. I think that's so
Shall we
for me.
move on?
Yeah, let's
Let's
move to the
on.
list. Okay. And our third and final one for today is Red Right Hand from the 8th album and Let Love In from 1994. Okay, this one's shorter. That's a bonus. Take a little walk to the edge of town and go across the tracks, where the viaduct looms like a bird of doom as it shifts and cracks. Where secrets lie in the border fires, in the humming wires. Hey man, you know you're never coming back. Past the square, past the bridge, past the mills, past the stacks. On the gathering storm comes a tall, handsome man. Pause there.
Do the next two lines so it finishes.
In a dusty black coat with a red right hand.
No, that's it. That'll do. So on a gathering storm comes a tall, handsome man in a dusty black coat with a red right hand.
There we go.
Okay. So this is, as I said before, possibly his best known song, I would suggest, as it has been used in lots and lots of things. Most notably recently, probably it was the theme song to Peaky Blinders, the period crime drama from the BBC. And it wasn't just his version, it was for 2 series, I think. And then they started using various cover versions of it.
Okay. And who
covered it? Sorry?
Who are those illustrious people who've covered it? That's right.
I don't know if I know all of them, but they include Arctic Monkeys, PJ Harvey, Iggy Pop, Jarvis Cocker from Pulp, and Snoop Dogg.
Exactly.
Snoop Dogg from Snoop Dogging, yes.
Snoop Doggy Dogging.
Yes. Also, Anita Lane, who is a former girlfriend of Nick Cave, and Nick Cave appeared on that cover version. PJ Harvey's also a former girlfriend
of course.
Nick Cave.
Who isn't?
Polly Harvey, that's right. PJ Harvey's the band, isn't it? Polly Harvey's the... yes, who isn't? Jarvis Cocker, who knows? Yes.
Okay, so somebody's taking a little walk to the edge of town, going across the tracks. Where the viaduct looms like a bird of doom.
Yeah. I'll just point out that I always think of this as being based on The Stand by Stephen King.
Oh, okay.
It's pretty much the same thing, mysterious.
I don't know that. What's that?
It's a book by Stephen King. It's also, there's been lots of film and TV versions by it. It's long, but it's the same about this mysterious man turning up and seeming to be a good thing and not being a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, as you said, take a little walk to the notes have gone mad. Take a little walk to the edge of town, go across the tracks where the viaduct looms like a bird of doom as it shifts and cracks. I think that's a beautiful bit of imagery of a piece of architecture, a viaduct that hasn't been cared for, maintained, and it's shifting and cracking with the movement of the soil and time, making noises like a bird of doom. vulture or whatever. Crossing the tracks, going across the tracks, often in America, they talk about people coming from the bad side of the tracks. So a lot of towns, especially mining towns, I guess, would have been bisected by a railway so they get the ore out. And one part, usually one side of the tracks, would usually be built for the sort of mine supervisors and the other for workers. So you'd have a good side and a bad.
Right. Okay. And what does red right hand mean, do you think?
It's a quote, basically, or it's mentioned in John Milton's Paradise Lost, as I'm sure you knew. He actually wrote Paradise Lost in a little town about 8 miles from here.
Oh, really?
Interesting. Yes.
Where was that?
And that would give away my location. We don't do personal information on this, do we? That's what we call Professor What's It, so that we don't get sent to jail or whatever.
That's true.
Know what we did if we use their names. It's a small town, 8 miles away. I'll tell you later. From Paradise Lost, the line is, should intermitted vengeance arm again his red right hand to plague us? What if all her stores were opened and this firmament of hell should spout her cataracts of fire? So that's apocalyptic imagery.
Yeah. And I always thought that the red right hand just indicated that it was a bloody hand, right?
Yes, I mean, that's pretty much it. It's talking about it being the hand of intermitted vengeance, which obviously is sudden violent vengeance. And AI camera's not working again. I'm going off the top of the screen. Oh, there we are. Right. He also, as I'm sure you know, mentions Red Right Hand in another of his own songs. Nick Cave does, which is a song called "Song of Joy" from his 1996 album Murder Ballads, which is a cracking album. And the verse in that is talk about somebody quotes John Milton on the walls in the victim's blood. Police are investigating at tremendous cost. In my house, he wrote his red right hand that I am told he's from Paradise Lost. So he, 2 years later, he tells people where the quote came from if they haven't looked it up yet.
Right. Okay. Good on him. Okay. Some more words. He'll wrap you in his arms, tell you that you've been a good boy. He'll rekindle all the dreams it took you a lifetime to destroy. He'll reach deep into the hole, heal your shrinking soul, but there won't be a single thing you can do. He's a god, he's a man, he's a ghost, he's a guru. 2 more lines. They're whispering his name through this disappearing land, but hidden in his coat is a red right hand.
Okay, we did need to go back there. We haven't finished the last lot. In the humming wires, hey man, you know you're never coming back. This is after he's walked over the tracks, bad side of the tracks. And humming wires is, to me, that's talking about when there's a very strong wind blowing, telephone wires hum. So I'd suggest that there's some. Oh yeah. I suggest it's the weather is sort of ominous. I would say is the meaning of that. Then we had past the square, past the bridge, past the mills, past the stacks. So this is again, I think, affirming that the term in question is very industrial. Mills, stacks of chimneys. And then on a gathering storm comes a tall, handsome man. Obviously, the storm going back to the humming wires. In a dusty black coat with a red right hand. So it's this tall, handsome man turns up in this long, dark coat with his red right hand, but you presumably don't necessarily see that straight away. So I think it's worth mentioning also The Gathering Storm is the title of the first volume of Winston Churchill's autobiography. It's talking about the time before war when everything was leading towards war. There. And it's also resembles these lines resemble the man in Bob Dylan's 1989 song "Man in the Long Black Coat." Which was the line, there was dust on the man in the long black coat, so the dusty black coat comes in.
Okay.
No, you went further than that, didn't you? Where'd we go? He'll wrap you in his arms and tell you that you've been a good boy. What do you think of this? Obviously, I think it's just, as we're saying, that he turns up, this person, like in the stand, everyone thinks he's great, he's going to...
But he's got a red right hand.
But he has got a red right hand, but they don't necessarily see this yet, though. He'll rekindle all the dreams it took you a lifetime to destroy. He's coming to give you back all the things you've lost. He's wonderful, this man. He'll reach deep into the hole of your body and heal your shrinking soul. He's great. He's the second coming of Elvis Presley or something.
He's a god. He's a man. He's a ghost. He's a guru.
Guru, yes. Obviously, a guru being in Hinduism, a personal spiritual teacher or guide.
Yeah.
So he's coming and I'd say, doing good works would be the biblical way of putting it, which I'm surprised he didn't say because he loves to be biblical. And so they're whispering his name through this disappearing land. So that he's becoming famous for all the great things he's doing. The disappearing land simply because, well, we know what's happening to the world at the moment. It's disappearing Earth now, not just that land. Really having trouble getting my camera to focus, which is terrible because I know you want to see my lovely face. Oh, never mind. But all these things that he's doing and his fame that's spreading, still hidden in his coat, there's a red right hand. So he's telling you that basically he's not a good guy.
Yeah.
He's not what everyone thinks.
Yeah.
He's hiding a darker side.
Yeah. You go for the next verse.
Absolutely.
You don't have no money, he'll get you some. You don't have no car, he'll get you one. You don't have no respect, you feel like an insect. Don't you worry, buddy, because here he comes. Through the ghettos and the barrio, and the Bowery and the slum, a shadow is cast wherever he stands. Stacks of green paper in his red right hand.
So again, good works. You haven't got any money, he'll give you some. You haven't got a car, he'll give you one. You don't have no self-respect. You feel like an insect. You mean if people feel small, insignificant. Don't you worry, buddy, because here he comes. This goes back to the last verse where he'll reach deep into the hole and heal your shrinking soul. And then we got here he comes through the ghettos and the barrio and the Bowery and the slums. So what does that mean to you, Professor J?
Oh, he's making friends amongst people who need help, amongst the lower people.
I think
lower class.
Historically,
can we say that? Can we say that?
Yeah, historically, originally, ghettos were for poor Jewish people. Is where they were put.
Yeah.
I think later times it became to known for any enclave of any ethnic or religious group. The barrio, of course, is it Brazil? The slums in Brazil, the barrios, I think. Might be Mexico. I think it's Brazil.
No, they're called something else in Brazil, aren't they?
Favelas, is that it?
Favelas, yeah.
The barrio might be Mexico then, but it's Hispanic anyway. And the Bowery is an area in New York, isn't it? I think. I'm not sure.
I think so.
Don't have a note on that for some reason.
It's Buenos Aires, Adria.
What about the Bowery? I think it's New York.
I don't know.
Anyway, what I think it's basically saying is that whichever group it is, he's going to go there and do these wonderful things for them. It doesn't matter what religion they are, what race they are.
What's this? You feel like an insect thing. You don't have no respect. You feel like an insect.
I say it's just people who don't have any self-respect or any belief in themselves will feel small and non-powerful, won't they? So insignificant, like an insect. I think that's
right.
what
Okay.
it is.
Okay. So he's not
shadow. Sorry.
But it's because the previous lines are, "You don't have no car, he'll get you one." He's not saying you don't have no respect, he'll make you an insect. No, it's saying that it's
no, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Not having self-respect and feeling like it. Yeah, it's not feel like a, I feel like a cup of tea. It's which I do. Run out. Yes, and then the shadow is cast wherever he stands. Well, to me, that's just suggesting that he's real. He's not a
Right.
ghost or a
Okay.
paranormal figure because he is casting a shadow. Stacks of green paper in his red right hand.
Money.
Ours isn't green, I guess. Notes tend to be green in America, do they?
Yeah, of course.
So long as I've been, I can't remember.
Yeah.
So it's basically he's suggesting a Faustian bargain. He'll give you what you want, but there's no such thing as a free lunch, and you will pay him back eventually.
Go down to the crossroads, huh?
Exactly, yes.
Okay, let's go for the final verse. You'll see him in your nightmares, you'll see him in your dreams. He'll appear out of nowhere, but he ain't what he seems. And hey, you'll see him in your head on the TV screen. Hey, buddy, I'm warning you to turn it off. He's a ghost, he's a god, he's a man, he's a guru. You're one microscopic cog in his catastrophic plan, designed and directed by his red right hand.
Indeed. So he's
Really?
becoming omnipresent. You'll see him in your nightmares, you'll see him in your dreams. He'll appear out of nowhere. You'll see him in your head on the TV screen. So you can't get away from him now. He's become ubiquitous, as I said. Excuse me.
I mean, for me, it's more about it's about I think that's why it's a good choice for Peaky Blinders. It's about gangs, and it's about gangs helping people when they're down on their luck, and then getting something back at the end of it. And I think we saw that over the past couple of years where people were unemployed during the situation. And it was institutions like the mafia that were helping people out, and no doubt the red right hand is getting its payback now.
Well, I'm sure. I've never seen anyone suggest it's about a group of people. It's always just been about this one figure. But obviously, any interpretation is correct in the mind of its interpreter, no matter how wrong you might be. Yes.
Thank you, Professor A.
Well, you're welcome. So what is there? Hey, we've got if you see him on the TV, that you're implored to turn it off, because whatever you get from him, it's going to be bad in the long run. It's interesting that the narrator knows all about the intentions of this man.
Yeah.
But people don't. So it could possibly be the man with the red right hand himself, talking about himself in the third person and playing devil's advocate with himself. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's also probably refers to the televangelist kind of.
Yes. That's
where you get preachers in America, obviously, on television yelling at their congregations. If you loved God, I'd be driving around in a Cadillac, that kind of stuff, and they get all this stuff bought for them.
Yeah.
And who knows? So I think it's basically whatever benefit the man.
Yeah. So, what do you know about Mick Harvey?
I know he was the bass player, I think bass and guitar possibly, player in the Bad Seeds originally. Don't know if he's still with them now. I know he wrote a lot of the music for these things.
Well, he co-wrote this one allegedly, and his description is that the lyrics describe a shadowy, alluring, and manipulative figure stalking the land and striking a combination of fear and awe everywhere he goes, seemingly part deity, part demon. And he says that while writing the lyrics, Cave filled an entire notebook with descriptions of the town the song is set in, including maps and sketches of prominent buildings, virtually none of which made it into the lyrics. Cave later said that the town and landscape depicted in the song is a reconstructed version of Wangaratta, his hometown in Australia.
Mhm.
Biographer Mark Muldoon notes that it's still somewhere real enough for those lyrics to serve as a map that could guide you from one point to another with an eerie familiarity.
All you have to do is walk across the track, so it's not that difficult, is it?
Yeah, exactly. Some people claim that it's based on a Tom Waits song.
I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, way down in the hole. Yeah. Yeah, it's
Oh, it's interesting because that was the theme for the TV show The Wire, the Tom Waits one.
okay.
It's great stuff, but I had no idea they were meant to be similar. So I can't really see how they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
We got another quote from Mick Harvey, if you want one,
Oh yes, give me
about the music.
Give me.
About the music rather
Ooh.
than the lyrics. He told Uncut magazine, "Red Right Hand is an odd one because it came out of a jam during some demo recording in Melbourne. I think Nick, myself, and Thomas Windler, the drummer, were there. Nick was sick of always playing C minor or G minor. His fingers always would go to the same chords on the piano. It's a common problem. He said, play something in a key I don't know. So I started playing that in B. I thought, he won't be able to find that. He won't be able to, dictate. It's just a 12-bar turnaround, really. Nick didn't really have a song, but we recorded the basic track when we recorded Let Love In, and we knew what the atmosphere was meant to be. It's just got this feel, and that's what the band seems to go. You like that one, do you, Professor Dogger? Yeah, good. It's got a red collar. It's appeared in lots of films and TV, including The X-Files, Slash, Cirque du Freak, Hellboy, and Scream 2. Oh, all three films of Scream, I think.
What's the third one called?
Scream
3.
What else we got? Peaky Blinders. The creator, Stephen Knight, explained the show's use of Red Right Hand as its theme song. There's a swagger, poetry, fallibility, flawed masculinity to that song that we aspire to in the show. That song gives you that world in your belly. Poetry and song are able to achieve in 2 minutes what we've been striving for over 24 hours. No, I don't really get that. And would you, finally for me, would you like interesting facts about John Milton's poem Paradise Lost?
Yes, please. Hit me.
He was attempting to justify the ways of God to man, he stated when he wrote this poem. He was totally blind when he wrote it. He composed it entirely in his mind and dictated it to his daughters. It's described as being the first great poem written in blank verse. And though he achieved universal fame for this work, before.
What does blank verse mean?
I think I've studied this, I should know. I think it's verse which doesn't necessarily rhyme.
Okay.
Well, I could be wrong. How he achieved, massive fame for this, he was poor and was forced to sell the copyright for Paradise Lost to a London bookseller for £5, plus another £5 after 3 editions of 1,500 copies had been sold. So he sold the rights to his poem for 15 quid. So that's sad.
And Milton's Red Right Hand is thought to be a translation of the Rubente Dextra from Horace's Ode.
Not sure why Horace would have written in Italian, but okay.
Sorry, Quintus Horatius Flaccus, then, if you want his real name.
Yeah, I did study Horace's Odes as well in Latin. So I don't remember a red right hand in it. I'm sure.
Rubenta Dextra. But Dextra is actually Nister. Oh yeah, it is right hand.
Sinister and Dexter in Latin.
Yeah.
That's why people are called sinister if they're left-handed.
Exactly.
was the thought that you were a witchy person. So
Okay.
that is our chat about 3 songs by Nick Cave. I'm sorry to say
Mm.
that next episode you're getting 4 more, and you're going to like it.
Yay.
Absolutely. So, you have anything else to add, Professor J?
No, that was really educational. Thank you very much. I enjoyed it a lot. Please like and
Ignore
just
that phone.
subscribe.
It's live. Yes, like us and subscribe us. And now I shall cue our outro. And thank you for joining us, and we will see you soon. Farewell.